President Yoon appeared before the Constitutional Court today to speak for himself at his impeachment trial. He denied the charges brought against him, whereas the National Assembly's legal team called for his immediate removal from office. Donald Trump has been sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, soon after which he signed dozens of executive orders to reverse the policies of his predecessor. On his first day in office, Trump called North Korea a nuclear power. We take a closer look at what his return to the White House could mean for the Korean Peninsula. It's January 21st, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. President Yoon attended his impeachment trial on Tuesday while remaining under arrest by investigative authorities. It was an unprecedented first on many levels for a sitting president. For more, here is our correspondent, Woo Soo-young.
A prosecutor turned president and now a pre-trial inmate. Yoon Suk-yeol argued against his impeachment at the Constitutional Court on Tuesday, the third hearing of his trial. The first sitting leader in the nation's history to be arrested and defend himself against impeachment, Yoon attended this trial for the first time to make a personal appeal to the 8-justice bench as a respondent.
또 특히 공직 생활을 하면서 자유민주주의라는 신념 하나를 확고히 가지고 살아온 사람입니다. 헌법재판소도 이러한 헌법 수호를 위해서 존재하는 기관인 만큼 우리 재판관님들께서 여러모로 잘 살펴주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다.
During the hearing, his lawyers outlined various points that they claim substantiate Yoon's martial law, which they plan to back with witnesses and evidence. First, they cited the opposition-led National Assembly's abuse of impeachment power against high-ranking officials, indiscriminate budget cuts on key military, nuclear energy and welfare programs essential to the country's future, public livelihoods and safety. They also underscored hybrid warfare as a new type of national crisis that poses security, economic and political threats. Examples include the leak of classified military intelligence and critical technologies to China. Yoon and his team once again stressed the need to investigate suspicions of electoral fraud in the parliamentary race last year, producing photographic materials. When questioned by the judge whether he had sent a note to Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok to prepare a budget for an emergency legislative body to presumably replace the elected parliament, and whether he'd ordered military commanders to drag out lawmakers from the National Assembly to prevent them from overturning its martial law, Yoon answered he had not. He further stated he'd immediately ordered troops to withdraw from the building once the Assembly passed a motion to end the decree. Meanwhile, the Assembly side continued to argue that the president's martial law was illegal. It cited media reports, investigation records, and CCTV footage from the National Assembly and the National Election Commission to back its arguments that Yoon had planned and caused disruption to the country's constitutional institutions. The Assembly's panel criticised the president's attendance as they walked out of the hearing.
Much of his narrative revolves around allegations of election fraud. It seems his intention in attending these hearings is not to influence the court's direction or to clear his name, but rather to continue fueling the propaganda that mobilizes his supporters.
Some 4,200 people rallied in support of Yoon in areas surrounding the Constitutional Court on Tuesday. One participant was arrested after physically abusing a police officer. The court says its officials are operating an emergency standby system with heightened security and police protection for justices.
Yoon's lawyers say the president, if possible, will attend all future hearings, which have been scheduled until February 13th. The fourth hearing will take place on Thursday, with a testimony by former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun as the first witness to the trial. Woo Soo-young, Arirang News.
We now move to Seoul Detention Center. Our Moon Hae-ryun joins us live for the latest regarding the investigation into the president. Hae-ryun, President Yoon has not yet returned there following the impeachment trial hearing.
Hello, Jung-min, that's right. So despite expectations that President Yoon would return directly here to the Seoul Detention Center, as you can probably tell from the very expectant crowds playing their music way up high from behind me to show their support for President Yoon, he has instead stopped by the Armed Forces Seoul Hospital in order to take a routine health checkup. Now, however, investigators from the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials made their way here, and this seems to be yet another attempt to forcibly bring President Yoon in for questioning after failing to do so yesterday. Now, this comes following a briefing earlier this morning where the CIO officials stated that there could be a possible forced summons attempt after the hearing concludes without mentioning any specific plans. Yesterday, 6 CIO prosecutors and investigators visited the Seoul Detention Center at 3 p.m. to forcibly take President Yoon in for questioning before eventually withdrawing as Yoon refused to cooperate and following resistance from the president's legal team. The CIO official emphasized the need to conduct face-to-face questioning, emphasizing that while President Yoon may be the sitting president, he is also a suspect, and that investigating suspects is a fundamental duty of law enforcement. It was also reported earlier today that prosecutors have asked the CIO to transfer the case before the initial detention period expires, ramping up pressure for the CIO to complete their investigations. The CIO does not have the authority to indict, so the case must eventually be handed over to the prosecution for further action. As the Constitutional Court plans to hold impeachment hearings twice a week, and Yoon's stated intention is to attend these sessions and prepare arguments with his defense team, there has been speculation that he may continue to avoid cooperating with the CIO investigation. The CIO has not ruled out conducting on-site investigations at the detention center, as seen in cases involving former presidents in similar cases, but they are currently not considering conducting investigations in written form.
And what has been the response from the president's team thus far?
Yes, Jung-min, so following the impeachment hearing this afternoon, one of Yoon's lawyers stated that the current CIO investigations cannot continue to proceed in its current state, and that his legal team will need to reconsider the investigation process and methods going forward. Now, in a social media post this morning, another one of his lawyers criticized the CIO's attempt to bring Yoon in for questioning and emphasized that he would take the steps to prevent any improperly forced summons by the CIO. Yoon's legal team has also strongly criticized the CIO for prohibiting visits for the detained president from anyone other than his legal representatives, arguing that restricting family meetings unrelated to the charges of insurrection is a vindictive act rather than a legitimate investigative measure, and have demanded the immediate revocation of such a decision. The CIO has also decided to ban Yoon from sending or receiving correspondence, which his lawyer Yoon Gap-gun criticized as inhumane. The CIO has cited concerns over potential evidence tampering as a reason for imposing these restrictions, but Yoon's legal team has dismissed these allegations as baseless and unjust. And that's all I have for today. Back to you, Jung-min.
All right, Hae-ryun, thank you for that coverage. That was our Moon Hae-ryun with the latest on the investigation led by the Anti-Graft Office. Following President Yoon's arrests, serious violence has erupted at a court in a country that is seen as a stronghold for democracy. Our Cha Jun-hwan examines what message it sends to the Korean society.
South Korea is a well-established democracy with a strong legal framework. But what we witnessed over the weekend suggests otherwise. The arrest of President Yoon Suk-yeol sparked violent unrest at the Seoul Western District Court as dozens of his supporters stormed the building on Sunday, causing extensive damage. The Korea Law Professors Association called this an unprecedented act of terrorism against the judiciary. While protests and demonstrations are not uncommon, an incident of this scale has never before been seen in South Korea.
Yeah, I think that it was a big threat to stability and neutrality of this South Korean legal system. If anyone who is not satisfied with any court decision keep doing such a violence, and the legal system will fall apart.
Another expert says the recent attack on the court stands out as a challenge to the nation's respect for the court as well.
But the bigger concern here, the bigger threat, however, lies in the diminishing respect for the court itself among those involved in the judicial proceedings. From now on, moving forward, we may face far more aggressive and violent challenges to the court decisions than simple protests.
Similar incidents are rare in other democratic countries as well, though there have been occasional instances of individuals or groups targeting judicial buildings due to frustration with legal decisions. The world witnessed a similar incident in the U.S., the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. While not directly targeting a judicial institution, it was fundamentally rooted in frustration with legal decisions made by election officials and the judiciary. On Tuesday, prosecution officials confirmed that all 46 supporters of President Yoon, who were detained for aggressively storming the Seoul Western District Court, are now facing formal charges and arrests. The prosecution also sought arrest warrants for 17 more individuals, accusing them of obstructing a vehicle carrying prosecutors and investigators handling Yoon's case, climbing over the courthouse walls, or assaulting police officers. Cha Jun-hwan, Arirang News.
Donald Trump has been sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. In his inauguration speech, he shared some of his plans for the next 4 years with a pledge to, quote, put America first. Kim Jong-sil has more.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
the
Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Donald Trump has been sworn in as the 47th President of the United States, marking the beginning of a new chapter in American leadership. Trump's inaugural address set the tone for his next 4 years, echoing the core message of his first term, America First.
The golden age of America begins right now. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
Shortly after his inauguration, the White House unveiled a revamped website with the bold declaration, America is back, promising to fight for a stronger, safer, and more prosperous nation. Key priorities for Trump's second term include securing the border and reinstating the Remain in Mexico policy, which requires certain asylum seekers to stay in Mexico while their cases are processed in U.S. immigration courts. Trump also vowed to address crime by cracking down on cartels and protecting law enforcement officers. And he pledged to enhance America's energy independence and prioritize domestic interests through regulatory reforms and his America First trade policy. His second term will focus on strengthening the nation's global position with a commitment to peace through strength, a vision of security supported by military and economic dominance. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
And as soon as he returned to power, Trump signed an executive order beginning the process of pulling the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Agreement. This is his second time to have done so, as he exited it in his first term in 2017, only for then-President Biden to rejoin the agreement in 2021. Trump also declared a national emergency at the U.S. Mexico border. In his inaugural address, Trump said he will send troops to the southern border, detain all illegal immigrants, and reintroduce a Remain in Mexico policy that requires migrants wait for their asylum proceedings on the Mexican side of the border. Up next, we take time now to learn more about the two men behind the posts of President and Vice President of the U.S. for the next 4 years. Lee Shu has the details.
Donald Trump was born in 1946 to a wealthy American family running a real estate business. He gained wide popularity in the early 2000s through his star role on reality TV. The image of a successful businessman he cultivated on television propelled his political career. In 2016, Trump ran for the presidency and won against Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton. His catchphrase both then and now, America First.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Upon entering the White House, Trump rolled back many of the preceding Obama administration's policies. He signed tax cuts for businesses, withdrew from the Paris Agreement on climate change, and boosted the production of fossil fuels. He adopted a strict immigration policy, partially building walls along the U.S. Mexico border to stop migrants from seeking asylum. At the end of his first term, Trump entered the 2020 presidential race but lost to Joe Biden. 4 years later, in 2024, Trump declared he was running again for all of America.
I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America, because there is no victory in winning for half of America.
During his campaign, Trump survived 2 assassination attempts, one at a Pennsylvania campaign rally in July. His message continued unrattled.
4 more years of incompetence, and stupidity, and failure and disaster, or whether we will begin the 4 greatest years in the history of our country.
Trump ultimately claimed victory in the election on November 6th. Helping Trump to win in Rust Belt swing states, Vice President J.D. Vance, a former Ohio senator who entered the public eye with his 2016 memoir, Hillbilly Elegy. In this memoir, Vance raised questions about social disintegration and economic insecurity among working-class Americans. He continued to vow support for the working class during the campaign last year. The New York businessman and the Rust Belt senator now stand together to face key tasks in America, just as culturally and socioeconomically diverse as the duo. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
Trump has made a political comeback and, as we just heard, has already begun to erase Biden's legacy soon after taking office. To take a closer look at how the new administration's policy will affect the Korean Peninsula, our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji joins us in the studio. Eun-ji, let's first go over the comments Trump made on North Korea just hours after he was sworn in.
Sure. So as soon as he was sworn into office and as he signed a series of executive orders on his first day in office, Trump described North Korea as a nuclear power and said that Kim Jong-un would be glad to see his presidential comeback, possibly hinting at his willingness to pursue talks with the North Korean leader. Take a listen.
I think we have a lot. I think North Korea turned out to be good. I was very friendly with him. He liked me. I liked him. We got along very well. They thought that was a tremendous threat. Now, he is a nuclear power, but we got along. I think he'll be happy to see him coming back.
Last week, Pete Hegseth, who will serve as the incoming Trump administration's Secretary of Defense, also described the North status as a nuclear power, sparking quite a lot of concerns here in South Korea. Now, it's unusual for a U.S. president or a senior official to refer to North Korea as a nuclear power, a term that could be interpreted as the United States acknowledging North Korea as a nuclear weapon state. Under the NPT, an international treaty barring nuclear weapons development, there are only 5 countries in the world that are officially recognized as a nuclear weapon state. They're the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom, France, and China. Other countries that possess nuclear weapons but have never signed the NPT are India, Pakistan, and Israel. But unlike North Korea, which pulled out of the pact in 2003 to continue to advance nuclear weapons, these 3 countries are not subject to international sanctions for having a nuclear arsenal. So Trump's latest comments have led to speculation that Washington could be shifting away from its focus on denuclearizing North Korea and that it could seek to take actions in the form of a small deal, such as nuclear disarmament or arms reduction.
Now, let us talk about Trump's foreign policy and how that's expected to impact relations with South Korea.
Sure. So as we just saw in the previous reports, Trump's foreign policy is largely focused on the idea of putting America first. And we're already seeing this happening in other parts of the world. Trump earlier threatened to seize Greenland and the Panama Canal, possibly by military force. And he also said that he will impose 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico in February. So this idea of an America first policy has led to the biggest problem that South Korea is facing, that Trump could renegotiate the deal on sharing the cost needed for American troops in Korea. During his campaign, Trump said if he were at the White House, South Korea would be paying the United States $10 billion a year, calling South Korea a money machine. If Seoul does not meet his demands, Trump will likely threaten to withdraw or downsize the number of U.S. troops, which could significantly influence South Korea's security. Pundits say that if there's even a slight economic gain or a small aspect of America's interest involved, Trump will disregard the international norms or procedures that we can typically think of and pressure other countries.
Then how should South Korea be prepared for the new U.S. administration?
Well, the experts that I've talked to have all said the same thing, that it's not going to be easy, especially since we're in a political situation where the country is left without a leader.
I don't think it will be easy. Even if we come up with response plans, it's not going to be easy to implement them. What's different from Trump's first term is that our capabilities have improved. In areas such as advanced science and technology, defense industry, and naval shipbuilding. But even so, utilizing these capabilities is not going to be easy.
The South Korean government has repeatedly said it'll establish a consultation channel with the new Trump administration very soon and ensure that the public and private sectors will be working together to build a stable alliance with the United States.
All right, Inji, thank you for the wrap-up today.
Thank you.
Korea's exports declined during the first 20 days of January. According to the Korea Customs Service on this Tuesday, the total value of exports during this period amounted to $31.6 billion, down over 5% on year. Pundits are linking the performance to fewer working days and believe the overall monthly performance will remain sluggish amid the extended Lunar New Year holiday during the final week of this month. Prior to this month, exports expanded for 15 months in a row. 2 athletes are vying to become South Korea's candidates to enter a race to win a seat on the International Olympic Committee Athletes Commission. According to the Korean Sports and Olympic Committee on Tuesday, Bobsleigh Olympic silver medalist Won Yun-jong has submitted an application to be considered as a candidate for the IOC Athletes Commission. This follows figure skater Cha Jun-hwan, who secured 5th place at the 2022 Beijing Olympics, submitting his bid earlier. The committee plans to form an evaluation panel to select the final candidates, who will then compete against candidates from other nations in an election that will be held at the 2026 Winter Olympics.
High concentrations of fine dust have been rampant all over the country today for 2 days in a row. For the first time this winter, preliminary measures to reduce the high concentration of fine dust were imposed in the Seoul metropolitan area and Chungcheongnam-do province. Please take extra precautions when driving by keeping a safe distance. In particular, some parts of the Seoul metropolitan area have very bad levels of ultrafine dust, with ultrafine dust advisory issued as well. This dusty air will continue to cover skies in most areas. You need to wear a protective mask outside. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start off at 0 degrees Celsius, Chuncheon and Daegu at -2 degrees. Daytime temperatures will move up to 7 degrees in Seoul and Chuncheon. Daejeon will reach 9 degrees. There's rain or snow forecast along the East Coast in the second half of the week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.